result of one of these attacks? Rather than arrest these terrorist groups and put an end to the terrorism, they arrested the Cuban Five. And they didn't arrest them with a warrant. They came around to their homes and they broke down the door. And they tied these men up on the floor in front of their children and carted them off to solitary confinement for 17 months. 17 long months before they were able to really get with their legal counsel and start to try and address the injustice. And of course then we know they went through an unfair trial, a trial that was based in Miami, a trial that was based in the same area with the same people who were running these terrorist cells. There is no way these men could get a fair trial in Miami. It was impossible. And US courts have ruled the same since. But still, there has been no justice. What do we want?
Free the boys!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Free the Cuban!
When do we want it?
Now!
Obama has had more than 2 years to release the Cuban Five, which if he was a true friend of democracy, if Obama was a true friend of justice, he would have done. It would have been one of his very first acts. He would have freed the Cuban Five who have committed no crime, whose only crime is to stand up for justice and democracy and against terrorism. That's the actions of the Cuban Five, and for that they've been punished by the United States. It goes to show the so-called democracy in the United States should really be called something else. It's really the rule of the corporate elite. And that's exactly why the Cuban Five are in jail. Not because they've committed any crime, but precisely because the example of Cuba shows an alternative. Shows that we don't have to live under this corporate dictatorship that we face in Australia and in the United States. There is an alternative, and Cuba presents that alternative to the world every day. Cuba presents an alternative to the world where the people live with first world social indicators.
Free the Cuban!